Hello, and welcome to Caffeine Entertainment. I'm your host, Mental9R, and this is a Caffeine Entertainment Tech Series video. And today I'm doing it with my good friend, my fun friend, and longtime friend, Finn Tin Tin. How you doing, Finn?
I'm doing well.
Good, good. Oh, man. And so in today's video, we're going to be talking about the potential split up, I guess, or divesting in Google Chrome. There's the word that was escaping my head. I guess I'm getting tired too. But yeah, let me just bring up the article, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Finn. It's an interesting development with a company, a tech giant the size of Google.
I read a similar but different article on it, and I'm looking just scanning at this one here. And I may get some of this wrong. I'd be very interested, actually, this topic in particular, very interested to get some feedback in the comments as to, especially if we're misunderstanding any of this. But what I gather is as follows: a judge has decided or agrees that Google are indeed using their position to create a search monopoly, amongst other things. And
Yeah.
and the Justice Department, who are the ones who've brought it, I guess, as a potential monopoly case, the judge has gone back to them then and said, give us some recommendations. And the recommendations of the Justice Department, I guess, are what's at are in discussion here. Um, we don't know any of this stuff will happen, but the fact is that, as I say, a judge has found Google to be using their monopoly illegally, and is looking for recommendations. So something will happen, most likely. Now, Google has come back with their own recommendations as well, or they're going to come back with their own recommendations, which I imagine would be very much more a slap on the wrist. Maybe we should pay like
One would have to imagine,
yeah,
yes.
well, maybe we should pay $1,000. How about that? How about $1 million? Like, you know,
Yes.
but the some of the items the Justice Department have suggested are: Google should be made to sell Chrome. Number one, Google should not be allowed to go into agreements with companies like Apple, paid arrangements with the likes of Apple and others, so that Google pops up as the default browser or whatnot.
Or
Um,
search engine, I think,
or
because
search engine, yeah,
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 Apple would have Safari, but it
yeah,
defaults to
yeah,
Google search engine.
yeah. Enough. Good call out. In addition, they also suggested that they may need to divest Android, and even to the extent, which is one of the ones I just noticed there a few minutes ago, actually, the Justice Department is even suggesting that. And let me get the phrasing right here. The government also asked the judge to force Google to shed any stakes in artificial intelligence companies that control technology that could compete with search engines. So that's pretty ginormous too. So
That's huge.
so between the three or four of those items, if they had to, like in a worst case scenario for Google, if they had to do all of those things, that would rip the company apart. Really,
It would.
that would be huge. Now, again,
Yeah,
I,
that's
I don't
tearing the core of the business out.
I don't think that anything like this is going to happen, but I can imagine them being forced to do quite a lot, like in their Android browser or Android OS, to take Google out as being the default. Maybe you have to choose Google, and I think they'll have to do something with Chrome as well, because they're like Chrome engine is I think essentially responsible for 80 to 90% of all browsing and
Yeah,
like
it's 90%.
yeah, like, and Google search is just an intrinsic part of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've divested myself from Google somewhat anyway. I quit using Chrome because it became what was once a very lightweight, fast browser has become incredibly bloated. And I find it's a memory hog, even with their best efforts to try and cut that back and regain some of its agility. I just don't like using Chrome. The only place I use it is for work because it's what I'm supposed to use. And that's it. I don't use it on my home PC. I don't use it on my laptop, my own personal laptop. I tend to stick with Opera is what I use most of the time, and I use DuckDuckGo as my search engine, and I even use the DuckDuckGo browser quite a bit. The only thing that sucks with DuckDuckGo is there's no plugin for LastPass. If they were to get that, then I'd probably use that full time because I find it's a fairly lightweight and it seems to be a pretty speedy browser. It works well. That's actually what we're viewing this in right now is DuckDuckGo. But and I kind of the name makes me chuckle too. So that's the kid in me.
It's an added bonus.
Yeah, added bonus. It's fun to say duck duck
Yeah.
go. But yeah, it's I look at Google, and when you look at the stranglehold they have on it, if they wanted to do some kind of a campaign, let's say they wanted to specifically push a message, it would be very easy for them to do that.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a scary thought too. Any large corporation with that much control, and this includes any of them, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, the big four, it's a scary proposition to have that much control. I've not really ever been a fan of companies getting this big. I mean, you look at the tech industry in general, and you and I have been involved in that for a long time, and I look at companies like Oracle and the behemoth that it's become, right? And just taking things over and then maybe just shutting them down if
Yeah.
it conflicts with anything else that they were trying to do business with. And I'm not a fan of that because it really, hey, it's great for the people that built up those companies. They make their big bank, but it just systematically removes competition from the world. And that's never a good thing.
And innovation as well, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it's so in my youth, like when
Oh, you're still
Microsoft,
pretty young.
yeah, well, when Microsoft went through similar things, probably, and I guess they're still going through it to a degree now, but I think around a
Yeah.
decade ago, maybe even longer ago, like, in my
Early
ignorance,
2000s.
yeah, in my ignorance or naivety, I used to think, essentially the government looked to be punishing them for being successful, right?
Yeah.
They have taken over the market. They have a better product than the other guys, and they shouldn't be punished for being successful. So in my, like, as I say, like the Tintin of 10, 15 years ago would have probably said, "Oh, leave Google alone. They're doing what they do. It's up to the competition to catch up with them." But the fact is, now I feel like, number one, they didn't get to where they got to just by their sheer brilliance. They got there by acquiring other companies as well, buying up other companies. Like, if YouTube was still independent of Google, that would be a significant additional player in the market, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's one thing. And number two, as you said yourself, there is a real tendency of these companies to buy up companies that are either doing stuff that is counter to what they're doing or doing stuff that would otherwise be a competitor to what they're doing, and just
Yep.
buying them up and absorbing them. So then there's just back to one again. So it isn't through, like, there's a reason that monopoly, you could get a monopoly through how successful you are. That doesn't make it right, though. And I do think that I agree with you. Like, although I'm using Chrome right now, I tend to, if I'm going to go just browse something, look at the news or whatever, and I just click in a browser, I open up Brave. However, like you said, there is so much stuff that is tied to Google Chrome that works well in Google Chrome and maybe doesn't work as well in other browsers, that
Yeah.
I end up, like, for my default browser for when I click on stuff is Chrome, right? Because if I'm clicking on other Google products like Sheets or Slides or whatever it might be, or Calendar or Meet, I tend to use Chrome. I might stop doing that and see how Brave works in all these other areas. In theory, it should be quite similar, but I guess
I've had good success with Opera. It works
Right.
fairly well. And it's not one of the big companies. It's not Microsoft Edge and it's not Google Chrome. So,
Yeah,
and watch, they're probably owned by one of them in the
yeah.
background or something. I don't know. But
But that's the way. See, that's my point in a way, right? You wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised to see Google, like, it's interesting they brought up AI, right? Because one of the things you saw, like, it seemed like there was a few, let's say, somewhat independent companies doing AI and getting ahead of the big players early on. And now
Yeah.
you see that there's a lot of AI tools out there. If you ever look anywhere, like there's a billion AI tools out there.
Yeah.
If Google and Microsoft and others like IBM or whoever, if they have their way, it won't be like that in a few years' time. They'll start buying up these AI companies as well and strangle holding the market. So again, there'll be two or three big ones, and all the other ones will be left behind. So I like it in theory. I do think Google's position in the market now is such that their their stranglehold in the market not only guarantees them success, but also stops other people getting success. So I think they should do something about that. But I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to do all of the things that the Justice Department are suggesting.
It's probably a case of we're going to go after all of this and hope to get one or two,
Yeah,
one or two wins out of it. And, honestly, one or two wins is probably pretty good.
yeah.
I mean, and maybe it's the cell phone market that I'm thinking of where they own 90% of the search engine traffic in the cell phone market. I can't remember,
Let me
but
just scroll back here a little bit because there was some stuff about Chrome particularly. I think so. Yeah, so Google Chrome is the most popular web browser in the world with an estimated 67% of the global browsing market.
okay.
Uh,
So I think I was maybe
and,
thinking of Android because I
and
think Android between Samsung and Google and all the phones that use Android, I think it's 90% of the market if I
yeah,
remember right.
and the fact that like they make it sound like Google make it sound like convenience, and it is conveniences to a degree. I don't disagree
Yeah.
with them in some respects, but the fact is when you get a Google, when you get most phones these days that isn't an iPhone, it's going to come with pre-packaged all of Google's products,
Yep.
and most of the public are not going to go out and search like you and I might, because as you say, we work in tech. And
Yeah.
we're aware of things, and we know there's something called Brave out there, or Opera, or DuckDuckGo, or other alternatives. But
Yeah.
most people who, and even more so if you're an Apple user, I imagine most people will get their pre-built phone and they'll just run with it. Right
Yep.
now, I have a different launch. I have a Pixel phone. I have a different launcher in my one, so I don't use Google for the search. I actually use DuckDuckGo as well on my phone, and I don't use
Okay.
the Google widgets either on my Pixel.
Right.
But you know what? It's not intuitive to do that, right? It's not intuitive to download something and make it work like that.
Yeah.
So most people are not doing it, and I do think something, unless you want Google to rule the world, and depending on your political persuasion, you're right. Like they could definitely, if they wanted to prefer, and I wouldn't be surprised if we find they do, because I think like a lot of these Silicon Valley companies, they have a political preference for one side versus the other.
Sure.
So it's definitely not it's definitely not unthinkable that you could put in like a search about Donald Trump does this, that, or the other, and you're going to get a slanted view of the results, or what the reality is based on the results that someone like Google could choose to show you. So I think that's definitely a
Yeah.
possibility, and you clearly, again, whatever your political persuasion, I tend to be on the political side that would agree with a lot of those viewpoints. But even still, I think people should be free to get the information in as
Unbiased as
yeah, as
possible.
unbiased as
Yeah.
possible,
It
right?
should be
That's
nonpartisan, right? You
yeah,
should just get results from the right. You should get results from the left and let people form their own opinions, I
yeah.
think is
No, I agree
what
with
what
you.
we're going after. And yeah, I think it's a real risk when you control that much of the market. And I mean, not only that, I mean, pushing your own products is a
Yeah,
possibility at that point too, right? If people are looking for something in particular and Google happens to offer it, they could throw that in the top research result all the time, right?
yeah.
Hey, look at our stuff, right?
If you I mean obviously
I
it's
mean,
the preeminent engine out there as well, but
yeah.
when you look at when you search for videos, you're going to get pretty much exclusively YouTube. There
Yeah,
are other
when's the last
platforms.
time you saw a Rumble result
Yeah,
on a Google search? Actually, that's an interesting thing. I might have to try that later and see if it shows any results. Because
Yeah, because there are other video tools out there,
yeah,
but
what's the other
yeah,
one? Vimeo, I think there's one.
Vimeo, I think, and there was another.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of other ones as
There's a
well.
few of them though.
That,
Yeah,
that,
you're
that
right.
they kind of fall by the wayside because they just can't get, like, if again the vast majority of the market are using Google search,
Yeah.
like they don't even register on that.
Yeah. Well, and in fairness, YouTube is the biggest platform by far. But does that mean you should never get results from other ones? And I'm not saying you don't. I honestly haven't even thought to try that. But I seem to remember having done searches for various things, and then it's always YouTube.
Yeah, but it's kind of a symbiotic thing, I think, as well. Obviously, YouTube was big before Google bought them, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, I imagine the fact that when you look up search results, it's always leading you to YouTube, and Google is pushing YouTube to you in other ways as well. You know, in terms of if you have your Android account, it's very easy to link your Gmail account to your YouTube, and it's all one ecosystem, right? So
Yeah.
the fact that that is the way it is, like it wouldn't be. Who knows? Like if Google hadn't bought YouTube all those years ago, other guys like Rumble or whoever could now have like 20, 30, 40% of the market. Who knows? But the fact that Google keeps on pushing results to YouTube is just maintaining their monopoly, right?
Yeah. Definitely would help maintain their dominance. And I'm gonna have to try that now and see if I ever get results from any other video platform provider. I think I have got what's it, Vimo,
Yeah.
Vemo, I think is the other one. I
Yeah.
think I get the odd result from that, or maybe that was using Bing that gave me that. I don't know. It'll be an interesting experiment, though. We should try and make note of that in the
And
future. But
all this is to say, like that, I actually think Google generally come out with good products, and they definitely were ahead of Microsoft in some regards, or many regards, or
yeah,
before and earlier on. And I like the way they did their Google tools initially. You know, maybe Microsoft has passed them out again. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, there's no doubt. I think that like we talk about video games as well. When other companies are doing something new, and either they can't get their head above the water, or they start to get a bit of traction, and then someone like Google or Microsoft buys them up, that can't be good for competition
yeah,
and innovation.
yeah. It's just not. So it's definitely going to be one to follow. Maybe we'll be doing a follow up on this as more news around it comes out. But it'll be interesting to see too with the change in government in the U.S. Will the new regime want to even bother with this? It's hard to know what they're going to do
They may
and
even
what
come.
their views of it will be.
They based on their political persuasion, they may even come down stronger in Google because I think they
Maybe,
would tend to
yeah,
perceive
maybe.
Google as less friendly to them.
Oh, that's actually a fair point. I never thought of it that way. Just knowing that Trump seems to be pretty pro-U.S. and this is a U.S. company, I thought maybe he would just not be interested in it. But you bring up a good point. It's
Yeah.
possible maybe there'd be a bit of a motive there to crack down.
Well,
It's
we'll see.
interesting.
If
Yeah,
I had to bet anything, though, I would say most likely they'll be made to do something with Chrome and Android. I don't
yeah,
think they'll force them to not be involved in AI. I mean, that's such a broad topic. Like AI, in terms of if it could compete with search engines. I mean, in a way, that's what like something like ChatGPT almost is. It's a search engine that
isn't
car. You know,
haven't they already kind of integrated their AI into their search now? Like they're not just a typical web crawler anymore.
yeah, yeah. Like I mean, they were never a typical web crawler, I guess, because of the specialized algorithms that they use.
Right.
But nonetheless, I mean, that like for any tech company to force them not to be walking hand in hand with AI products because it could compete with their other business or it could supplement their. That's a hard sell for me because I'm like, geez, that's seems like AI is going to be in everything now. How are you going to avoid
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's going to be interesting. It'll be fun to see how this plays out, I think, anyway. And it could be, initial shots fired, and everybody else needs to watch their backs at this point.
Yeah.
They're all involved in AI. They're all involved. mean, I guess Amazon doesn't really, they don't have that same presence on the web in the sense that, they don't have a web browser. They're not doing that type of stuff, I guess. But they definitely have a big footprint with things like, I don't want to say it out loud because it'll try and respond in the background. But, that at-home presence, right?
And AWS as well, right? Which is
Well, yeah, a huge cloud footprint. Like they're the biggest.
I think by a stretch. I think by a stretch they're the biggest. I think
they're pretty huge.
IBM, Microsoft, and Google are playing catch up. I think. But
I think Microsoft's second and Google's third, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember that right. But yeah, it's AWS is massive.
I think that the thing to take away from this, though, is that a judge has already ruled that they have been using their monopoly illegally. The question is, so something is going to happen. The question is what?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. We'll see how it goes, but
we'll get our popcorn for the court hearings.
No doubt. But well, any other thoughts on this one, Finn?
No, as I say, I think overall, I'm not sure what the right thing to do is, and smarter minds than me will prevail there. But I do think that anything that increases competition and lack of monopolistic practices can only be a good thing.
It's a good thing, yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't mind seeing more of this. I think if I'm not crazy, there was a time when there was rules around corporations and how long they could stay in one piece in order to prevent things like this. I think it was something around 40 years, and then they were supposed to get split up, and then all that regulation got removed. And now you have these, multi-trillion-dollar behemoths that are sitting there controlling much of what we consume on a daily basis. So,
and there's so many of these companies as well, compared to like our history, are actually really young. When you look at Microsoft, I mean, Microsoft is the oldest of them. I guess IBM is the oldest of them, but if you look at Microsoft, Amazon, Google,
Apple,
they're not that old. Like they're like 40, 50 years, right? Like max.
Yeah, and you look at what they've done in that time frame, and again, it's kind of, well, do you punish them for being successful? But when you actually see the end result, I think it's a good plan to maybe curb this a bit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
All right, with that said, this video will probably be removed from YouTube, so you may be watching this on Rumble. Anyway, closing thoughts, and why don't you tell people where they can reach you?
Yeah, I'm not sure that our impact is so much right now that they won't bother to search us out and kick down our door. But yeah, you can get me at Fintintin on X, as always, with the 1 instead of the first I, and then Fintintin, all alphabetical characters, on PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam.
Awesome. And I am at Mental9R on X. I am Mental9R on Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, and just about anywhere else you can play games. And of course, you are at Caffeine Entertainment. If you stuck with us this long, please find it in your heart to hit that like and maybe even a subscribe. And geez, if you can share it out with a few friends, that would be greatly appreciated too. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mental9R. He is Fintintin. This is Caffeine Entertainment. Don't forget, it's time to wake up and play some games.